I was sitting tuning into my nervous system, and I noticed that I could feel this sense of a shaking happening inside. It wasn't outside. It was an inside kind of shaking, and not trembling so that I could feel it, but the movement was more than just movement. So it felt like a shaking. No, it wasn't. I wasn't shaking. So what I wanted to do was provide a little containment to my body. I did that by wrapping myself in a blanket. And when I did that, I noticed first that my body kind of wanted more of it. Like I couldn't get it tight enough at first. Like that was so I knew it was the right thing for my body. Like that little bit of shaking responded to the idea of the wrap and the containment in a positive way. And as I sat with it for just a little bit and noticed that it wasn't quite what I wanted, and I really wanted more tightness, I kind of got this really faint, fast glimpse of that little movement, shaking movement, wasn't continuing to accelerate, wasn't continuing to move as fast as what it had been. Now, I didn't notice it slowing down, and I didn't notice it feeling better, and I didn't notice it feeling easier, but I had this kind of micro glimpse of it's not continuing to get worse. Okay, which is what I was kind of aware of when I was like, I want this to be tighter. Like there was a whole sense of this isn't good enough. And then I had this micro flash of it's not getting worse or it's not increasing. So what I did is I followed that. I was like, oh, it's not increasing. It's not getting worse. Oh, maybe it's slowing down, or maybe it's not as far. Oh, it's not as. And with that, I started to notice that things were slowing down. Things were feeling better. So nervous system work is very much around this idea of that it's subtle and it's almost imperceptible, but you kind of notice these little flashes of something. There was almost like a preliminary indicator of change. That if I've trained myself to be able to notice a preliminary indicator of change, then I can track my nervous system coming into settling. So what we're really tracking is the activation and deactivation cycles of our nervous system. But we have to actually be able to be in those kind of states of how do we track that? We're tracking almost those preemptive experiences that maybe are indicating a change is just about to happen if we slow down enough with it. So I'm hoping that may be really a really good way of pinpointing exactly what nervous system work is. In a very simple way, it's tracking the cycles of activation and deactivation, but there's this way of finding the preemptive activity is what kind of gives it that nuanced and approach that we kind of often need a little bit of support and facilitation with. That's why we need to know what nervous system state we're in, because we need to know what it feels like to come from a heightened, aroused, sympathetic state and how that feels to start to regulate. So that's why we map it. It's like, oh, well, when I'm in a sympathetic state, for example, through the mapping process, we've learned, oh, yeah, I can feel like the cells in my body feel like they're vibrating at a much higher level, for example, right? And yet when I'm in ventral vagal and I'm socially available and I'm in my social engagement system, there's a kind of smoothness about my cellular experience, and I can kind of feel a little bit of this kind of flow, and it feels a little warmer, and I feel maybe a little bit more still, right? That's an example of how someone might feel in a ventral vagal state. So through tracking my own system and noticing kind of where there was a vibration or a shaking, I'm able to go, I'm not in ventral vagal, that's for sure. I'm probably in sympathetic. And as I noticed that more stillness became available to my body, I'm like, oh, maybe this is actually moving me in the direction of ventral vagal, where I am more available to connection to myself, which is the first thing, more connected to our body first, really. And that then ripples out like rings on a tree. So we go from that connection to our body, to our connection to ourself, to our connection to others and the people whom we love, and then connection to our community, and then connection to spirit. Okay. And in there, of course, is connection to land. And that's another way that this whole thing is related to the shamanic practices, because we are trying to actually work through our connecting to ourselves, and we will ultimately feel connected to all that is. And that's the process, is we suddenly actually start to sense that oneness and that oneness field once we actually get more connection on board. So it's like you can't not have a shamanic outlook once you actually get connected at this deep level of the body and the nervous system. You cannot not feel connected to everything.